I used to think that simple afternoons, like eating instant noodles with my wife in the kitchen while the radio replayed old songs, were the definition of happiness. But I was wrong. Happiness doesn't live in a moment. It lives in two people still looking in the same direction. And once one person starts looking elsewhere, everything else is just a fresh coat of paint over a wall already rotting beneath. Less than a year ago, if someone had told me Madison, the girl who once held my hand through every high school festival, would become a stranger inside the very house we decorated together, I would have laughed. But everything changed, slowly, silently, like water seeping through a crack under the sink. By the time I noticed, the floor was already soaked. I'm 34, a systems engineer in Lincoln, Nebraska. She's 32, once a preschool teacher, then switched to freelance beauty work for more flexibility. We got married when I was 26 and she was 24. A two-bedroom house, trimmed front lawn, and a rescue dog named Milo. Like any average couple, we had a plan. Summer trips to Colorado, saving for a new car, kids within 2 years. But eventually, average stopped being enough for her. It began when Madison got close to a new group of friends. People I hadn't met at any wedding or holiday. She met them at a high-end gym she joined after a client gifted her a trial voucher. From there, it became weekly spa days, weekend yoga, and constant posts with polished filters and captions like, "Grateful to be living my aesthetic." At first, I didn't think much of it. Who doesn't like seeing their wife happy? But then the light comments started falling like stones into still water. Some people's houses even have a little pond out back. Why do you always wear that same old shirt? I don't want to be stuck in just fine forever, Patrick. I remember cooking dinner one night, lighting candles, playing jazz. She came home late, glanced at the table and said, "Cute, but don't you think these dishes feel kinda middle-aged?" I tried not to react. Maybe it was stress or that feeling of falling behind. I told myself we all hit rough patches. But soon, she began tying every frustration to me. "Are you really content with this life? If you pushed harder, maybe we wouldn't have to count every dollar for a vacation. Why do all my friends have husbands pulling 6 figures or more?" She never said it outright, but her words cut deep, sharp enough to slice a man's pride clean through. I'm not lazy. I work 8 to 10 hours a day, come home in time to walk Milo, cook dinner, and still spend weekends clearing out the garage. I'm not a man without dreams. But she spoke of me like I was an anchor tied to her ankle. One night, as she scrolled through her phone, I asked, "Do you think we're heading in the right direction?" Madison looked up, eyes colder than the Minnesota winter outside. "I think I'm stuck." I didn't respond. Just sat there, listening to the ceiling fan turn slow, like a ticking clock marking the final minutes of something I once called us. February in Minnesota is never kind, but that Tuesday was cold enough to freeze the car windows from the inside. Madison said she was going to her sister Brielle's place to unwind for a couple of days before her birthday. I pretended I couldn't come, made up a story about an emergency network outage at work. The truth? I'd planned the whole thing a week in advance. I'd ordered her favorite birthday cake, vanilla bourbon with salted caramel, from that small shop in St. Paul we used to love, booked a dinner table at French Colonial in Duluth with a window view of Lake Superior. Even had her favorite pleated black dress tucked in the trunk. She'd hesitated to buy it the first 3 times. I bought it the 4th. I left at 6 a.m. Tuesday, hoping to make it to Brielle's before dark. Snow started halfway through. Forecasts warned of heavy ice, plunging temperatures. I kept going, slid twice, stopped in Hinckley to clean the windshield and drink 2 cans of coffee to stay alert. I'm not the romantic type, but that day, I only pictured Madison's face opening the door to the cake, the flowers, the surprise. I arrived at Brielle's just before 5 p.m. The kitchen light spilled warm across the snow-covered porch. I stood with the cake and bouquet in hand, took a breath, and stepped forward. The front door wasn't fully closed. Laughter floated out. Then I heard Madison's voice, clear and unhurried. If he skids into a ditch, honestly, I could use the insurance money to get a proper SUV. No one laughed at first. Then Brielle chimed in, or at least a few weeks of silence without that damn keyboard clicking every night. I froze on the porch, my hands stiff around the box. The wind cut through my coat, but the words did more damage than the cold ever could. My heart didn't speed up, it just dropped. Then came their laughter. I didn't go in. I set the cake on the front step, turned and walked back through the snow. My shoulders were dusted white by the time I found my keys. No music, no call, just the sound of the wipers slicing across glass, ticking like a countdown to something coming undone. I checked into a roadside motel off Highway 35, room 103. The sheets smelled like bleach and smoke. I didn't turn on the phone. Just pulled the curtain closed, laid down still wearing my jacket, snow melting into the sleeves. All night, her words echoed. Every pause, every syllable, every laugh after. The next morning, Madison called 12 times. Then came the texts. I didn't open any. Didn't need to. I already knew the pattern. Excuses, guilt, maybe even blame. I sent one text to Jackson, the only friend I still spoke to. Need a place. No questions, just quiet. He replied, "Doors unlocked, beers in the fridge. I'm home by 6. By noon, I was back at our house. Packed clothes, files, laptop, old photos. Grabbed the metal box with our important papers and the stack of bills Madison never touched. She wasn't home. Before I left, I glanced at the kitchen, where she once ate noodles in sunlight, where I once believed normal was enough. I closed the door behind me. Didn't bother locking it. By the time I got to Jackson's, there were nearly 50 unread messages on my phone. I didn't open any. I opened the fridge, grabbed a beer, and sat on the hardwood floor. Not to drink, just to feel the tremble still in my hands. I still don't know who Madison has become, but the woman I loved once cried over a dying bird she'd rescued for 2 weeks. That woman would never laugh about me being broken on a frozen highway. I spent the first 3 days at Jackson's barely saying 10 words. He didn't press, just set up an extra mattress in the office, left the spare keys on the table. The fridge had canned noodles, some cold cuts, and a few beers. That was enough. Madison called from every number I'd ever known. Main, backup, even the iPad. The texts kept flooding in. "Where are you? Don't be silent like this, I'm scared. It was just a joke that night." Then, "You're overreacting." An hour later, "If you don't reply, I'm calling the cops." I shut the phone off. The only thing I turned on was my laptop, logged into our bank account, traced every transaction for the past 6 months. It felt like running hands through glass in the dark. Knowing I'd bleed, but needing to touch truth. She'd withdrawn over $12,000 in just 4 months. No notes, no receipts, no traceable reasons. The next morning, I moved half of what was left into a new account under my name, changed every password, revoked her access to shared apps, called the credit card companies, and froze every joint line. That night, Jackson placed a bottle of whiskey on the kitchen table. Didn't say a word. I told him everything, every single word. When I got to the part where she wished for an accident to claim the insurance, he didn't flinch. Just poured another glass and said, "Tomorrow, you disappear." Let her feel the loss before she can deny it existed. On Thursday morning, I rented a private P.O. box at the city post office and changed my mailing address. Right after, I called my company's HR department and said I needed to work remotely due to family reasons. When they asked how long, I replied, "At least 2 weeks." No further explanation. I deleted every photo of Madison from Google Photos, backed them up to a hard drive, then buried it deep in my backpack as if storing a memory I wasn't ready to erase. That evening, when the tension in my head started cracking into sharp aches behind my forehead, I finally turned my phone back on. 87 unread messages, 24 missed calls. 2 were from Madison's mother. I couldn't get through even one line before the phone rang again. I let it go, staring at the screen glow and fade, feeling nothing but a sting deep in my chest. I opened the last message in that long thread. The only one without "babe" or "you," just "Patrick, do you really want to take this that far?" I didn't respond. On day 7, I woke up early, no alarm needed. I went to meet Dean, a financial advisor Jackson had recommended. His office was on the 2nd floor of a building that looked like an old clinic from the outside, but inside smelled of warm wood and played soft music from a Bluetooth speaker. Dean didn't ask about personal drama. He just asked, "Are you trying to protect your assets or fully untangle financially?" I said, "Both." He listed 3 steps. First, plan to separate accounts. Second, freeze all joint lines of credit. Third, draft a formal statement of financial separation. Legalize it if necessary. I agreed to all of it. Back at Jackson's, I opened my laptop and sent an email to a family law firm in Minneapolis asking for legal consultation on separation. No commitments, just looking for the least destructive path forward. The next message I received wasn't from Madison, it was from Brielle. She wrote, "Madison is breaking down since you disappeared like that. No one wanted it to come to this, whatever happened. I almost deleted it, then stopped. Not because of Brielle, but because I needed to remember. In her family's eyes, mocking a husband who drove through a snowstorm is still something no one meant." That night I slept dreamlessly. No images of Madison, no kitchen glowing gold, no scene of me offering birthday cake to someone who once said I was everything, then laughed about the idea of me lying broken on an icy road. On day 9, since I left our home on Oak Street, I sat at Dean's desk in a space barely bigger than my old gym's locker room. On the desk were printouts from his bank system and an Excel file that killed my appetite just by glancing at it. "I've gathered unusual expenses over the past 7 months," Dean said, sliding the papers toward me. "I can't confirm they're all from Madison, but most of it was charged on a secondary card in her name." I flipped through the first page. A shopping spree at Bloomingdale's, almost $1,200. A spa treatment. Bill in Eden Prairie, $950. Multiple online payments for fashion, cosmetics, boutique gyms. Scattered ATM withdrawals. No notes, untraceable. "Do you have a total?" I asked. Dean didn't speak right away. He turned the screen toward me. The number read, "Almost $16,700. Just from August until now," he added, voice dropping. The first feeling was hollowness, like opening a fridge and finding all the food spoiled without remembering who missed the dates. I recognized some things. The beige purse Madison once showed off as a sale steal, the new workout set she said felt better for outdoor running. I didn't ask much at the time, thinking everyone deserves a little for themselves. I never thought staying quiet this long would turn that into a financial sinkhole. "Does she have any accounts you didn't know about?" Dean asked. I nodded. An old Venmo she used for commission payments when she did beauty sales. I saw the name a few times, then it disappeared. Dean took notes. "So, at least one side income stream that's unaccounted for." I scheduled a follow-up with Dean in 3 days to prepare full financial separation paperwork, including legal asset protection. He said he'd coordinate with a lawyer who handles that process. On the way home, I stopped by the bank and requested a new card under my name, closing all the old ones linked to Madison. The clerk asked, "Would you like us to notify the secondary card holder?" I shook my head. "She'll figure it out when the card gets declined." Back at Jackson's, I pulled out the life insurance policy we took out 3 years ago while planning for kids. I'd been paying every cent, $500,000. Beneficiary, Madison. I called the insurance company and requested to change the beneficiary to my mother in Iowa. The agent verified my voice 3 times before approving the request. As I hung up, her words echoed in my head. The joke about me crashing for insurance, it wasn't a joke anymore. It wasn't just careless. I continued compiling a long list: shared online accounts, cloud storage platforms, streaming services, our home budgeting software. I changed every password, disabled auto login from all unfamiliar devices. As I went step by step, there was no pain, only the quiet resolve of someone dismantling an abandoned house, one brick of trust at a time. That night, Madison sent an email instead of a text. "Are you trying to make me the villain in front of everyone?" Attached were 3 voice memos I didn't listen to. I didn't respond, but saved them to a Google Drive folder labeled, "In case I need proof." The next morning, I transferred all my account info onto an encrypted USB and stored it in a small safe Jackson lent me. I also hand-wrote a backup financial plan in case something happened to me. Not because I believed someone would hurt me, just because I no longer believed safety came from memory alone. I canceled magazine subscriptions, removed our old home address from every auto payment system. Anything that bore both our names, I cut, unlinked, deleted. Not out of rage, but from the calm of someone whose learned survival no longer needs blind devotion. I was working at Jackson's kitchen table when there was a knock. Fast, urgent, like whoever was outside feared backing out if they paused too long. Jackson glanced at me, got up to open the door. Madison stood there, cheeks flushed from the cold, leather bag in hand, eyes sweeping the room like she was trying to confirm I was still real. "I just want to talk," she said, voice hoarse though no one asked. I didn't move, didn't invite her in, didn't react. Jackson avoided my gaze, then quietly stepped aside, letting the door swing open before disappearing upstairs. Madison walked in slowly, her eyes roaming the unfamiliar room as if searching for something to be mad at. Then she sat across from me. "Are you really trying to drive me insane?" Her first line? No hello, no apology. I said nothing. "Patrick, I've already said I'm sorry. I've sent you hundreds of messages. I waited outside your work for 3 hours yesterday." Her voice rose. "I thought something really happened. I thought that joke had come true." I looked her straight in the eye. "You call that a joke?" She froze, took a deep breath. "I was drinking. My sister kept pushing me to talk. I didn't think you'd actually hear it. I didn't mean it that way." Pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder app, and pressed play. God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance. Then Brielle's laugh, followed by, or at least a few months of silence, then both of them laughing. No echo, no edits. Madison stared at the phone, face draining of color, eyes blank. She reached for it. I pulled it back. "That recording wasn't intentional," I said. "I was using it to record birthday gift ideas while driving. I didn't mean to catch that moment." She covered her face with both hands, her voice shaking. "I didn't. That's not what I meant. You have to understand. I'm stressed about money, about work, about everything. I don't have anyone but you. You know me." The line, "you know me," doesn't work anymore, I said slowly. "Because I'm starting to realize I don't know you at all." She broke down crying. Not the dramatic movie-style sobbing, more like strangled gasps held back to avoid screaming. I said nothing. In my head, one sentence kept looping. "You know me." If I truly knew Madison, I wouldn't be sitting across from the woman who laughed at the idea of me dying on the road. She suddenly stood, pacing the room, repeating, "You can't just disappear like that. You're destroying everything. People are asking. I can't explain." "Then don't explain," I said. "Silence is also an option. You should try it." She turned back, tears still running down her cheeks, but her voice sharpened. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Playing the wounded man, getting all that sympathy. What do you want? You want me to get on my knees?" I stood, not yelling, not angry. "I don't need anyone to kneel. I need the truth." "But that seems like a luxury to you." Madison froze. After a moment, she walked to the door, turned back once, and hissed through clenched teeth. "You just killed what was left of me." I didn't reply, just closed the door. Jackson appeared a few minutes later with 2 beers, set one in front of me, and said, "Want to burn that recording?" I looked at the can, then at Jackson. "No, I want to keep it. Not for revenge. To remind myself I almost believed love alone could save someone." I sent an email on Monday morning at 6:17 a.m., just one line. "The separation papers will be delivered to your address this week. Read carefully before responding." No sorry, no hope you understand, just silence frozen solid from fully ripened disappointment. Less than half an hour later, Madison called. I didn't answer. She left 3 voicemails. 2 were just broken breathing, and the third one was choked. "You can't do this. This is just anger. Don't destroy 7 years over one moment." 7 years. That phrase appeared no fewer than 4 times in her following texts. She clung to that number as if time could erase the sound of her laughter in Brielle's kitchen. As if those cruel words were never spoken. That afternoon, I met Dean's attorney, a woman named Sharon. Cold, sharp, not one for niceties. She listened to my summary without interrupting once. "We won't file for divorce just yet," she said. "I recommend a legal separation first. Your assets, finances, and privacy will be protected while giving both of you space to assess if anything's worth saving. I nodded. I'm not doing this for payback. I need space. Sharon gave a slight nod. You don't need to justify. Survival instinct is a valid reason. The documents were prepared in 2 days. In that time, Madison showed up again. This time, no knocking, no demands to talk. She sat under Jackson's porch roof for nearly an hour, during the cold midday sun, staring blankly at the row of trees ahead. I stood in the backyard, watching through the glass door, unmoving. She wore an old hoodie I'd bought on our Montana trip, her hair a mess, hands twisting in her lap like she was clinging to something already gone. Jackson whispered, "She looks like a shadow. Are you sure?" I asked one question, eyes still fixed on Madison. If I hadn't heard that recording, would she have ever told me? He didn't answer. Wednesday afternoon, Madison received the documents. I knew because she emailed less than 2 hours later. Really, Patrick, you make me the villain and send a lawyer to my house? I didn't reply. An hour later, another email came. Longer, full of explanations. Everything boiled down to the usual suspects: alcohol, stress, her sister's influence, social pressure, exhaustion from feeling trapped in a wife's role and no longer herself. Every paragraph dodged one thing: responsibility. I marked the email as read, but didn't respond. In my head, I saw only one image: Madison in that kitchen on her birthday, laughing. Not awkward, not accidental. A smile that knew exactly what it meant. Knew and still said it. That night, Jackson got home late. I sat alone, the USB with the recording on the table. I listened to it again, not to punish myself, to strengthen my decision. After the laughter, after the cold words, there was a pause. In that silence, I saw the ending most clearly. The next morning, I signed all the papers Sharon gave me. She said, "The other party has 15 days to respond. If not, the separation will be legally recognized by the county." I signed like someone finishing the last line of a contract long past due. No hesitation, no trembling. That evening, Madison left another voicemail. Her voice was so faint I had to hold the phone close. "I read everything, I get it now. But you didn't have to do this. I just hoped for once you'd look at me without seeing a stranger." I deleted the recording after listening, not out of forgiveness, but because I no longer needed any more proof. What needed clarity was already crystal. The only thing left was a choice: move forward or crawl back into the mud. I had made mine. On day 37 since the separation papers were sent, I received a small package at my P.O. box. No sender name, just familiar handwriting on the label. "For Patrick, if you're willing to read." Inside was a thick envelope and a silver USB, along with a short handwritten note. "I'm not sending this for forgiveness. I'm sending it because I've started to understand." I read the first letter late that night. It wasn't a love letter nor a plea. It was a detailed, honest breakdown. Madison recounted our relationship in a way I never thought she had the courage to. The sweet moments, the buried tension, the phases where she said I felt like a shelter so solid it suffocated. She admitted to comparing me to her best friend's husband, the guy with the Tesla, who took his wife to the Maldives 3 years straight, even while drowning in credit card debt. She admitted to wishing I were bolder, willing to quit and start something, crazy enough to try something big. Then admitted how drained she felt looking at her bank account after every retail therapy spree. Madison talked about a coworker named Drew who once texted her at 1 a.m. saying they were just friends. She said nothing happened, but confessed she once wished he'd text more. Not for romance, but for the feeling of being wanted, something she said she hadn't felt for me in a long time. I stopped reading on page 6. Not from anger, but because it felt like sitting in front of a mirror, seeing the shadows of someone who once slept beside me. The USB held 6 recordings, clips from therapy sessions she'd started in mid-month. I opened just one. Her voice was hoarse. "I think Patrick used to be the safest thing I had. And then I made him the benchmark for every failure in my life." He didn't cry, just paused often, like choosing words that wouldn't reopen wounds. The recording lasted 14 minutes. I listened to the end. 3 days later, I got another email from a mutual friend, Emma, with a link to an Instagram story. Madison had started listing her designer wardrobe on a resale app. Each item came with a short caption like, "The dress I bought to cover the emptiness." I wasn't sure what to make of it, but it didn't feel like a stunt. It didn't feel like the woman who used to check the mirror 3 times before every dinner just to make sure her blouse wasn't wrinkled. The following week, Sharon, my attorney, sent a notice that Madison had signed the separation agreement, didn't contest any clauses, and requested no edits. The most surprising part was that she added a handwritten addendum, a commitment not to incur any new debt under our shared name, and a pledge to pay off her personal credit cards within 4 months. Not a single word of blame. I reread that addendum 3 times. Something had shifted, not the kind meant to sway me, the kind that happens when someone finally looks at the cracks they've spent years covering up. Madison no longer texted, didn't call, didn't send flowers, didn't write again, just gave me space. For the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't feel hunted. I didn't flinch at every phone notification. The air in the room felt lighter. Even in a borrowed apartment. On Saturday night, I happened to scroll past a post in a local women's community group, sharing this week's meetup on starting over after the wrong choice. Thanks to Madison for leading the finance circle with honesty and courage. One of the comments below read, "Not everyone dares to confess their mistakes in front of strangers. Fewer still stay to fix them." I didn't hit like, didn't leave a comment, but I read that last line 3 times. Then closed the laptop, stood up, and stepped onto the back porch. Light snow had begun to fall. No wind, no traffic. Only one thought passed through my mind. Maybe people really can change. Not for forgiveness, but to survive themselves. On Wednesday afternoon, my P.O. box held a thick white envelope. Inside were 2 neatly clipped documents and a short handwritten note. "You don't owe me an answer, but if you're still unsure, these are the 2 paths I see most clearly." Madison's handwriting was round, tidy, and steady, not shaky like the old messages. The paper held no tears, no flower stickers, no perfume. The first packet was titled, "Reconciliation Roadmap, if possible." 6 months of couples therapy, 3 sessions per month. 2 weeks with no contact outside those sessions. Clear financial transparency. No shared credit cards. She proposed hiring a neutral third party to track progress. No personal social media use. At least until trust could be rebuilt. The second. Respectful separation agreement. Asset division based on real contributions. She agreed to buy out my share of the house at market value, no disputes. She'd handle her remaining credit card debt and wouldn't seek alimony. No contact unless it pertained to legal or financial matters. Wedding photos and mementos on a separate USB. She'd return it if I wanted, or delete it at the end of the process. I read both documents 3 times that evening. I didn't feel lighter, but I wasn't more confused either. Maybe my silence all this time wasn't about anger. It was about not knowing which direction I still wanted to go. The next morning, I sent a short email. "I have received both. Thank you for the clarity. I need time." No exclamation points, no artificial warmth. That weekend, I met Jackson at our usual coffee shop. He stared at me for a long time before asking, "Is she really changing or just acting better?" I didn't answer right away. Took a sip of cold coffee, eyes fixed on a beam of sunlight cutting through the window. "I think she really is changing, but I'm not sure the person she's becoming still fits with the one I'm trying to get back to." Jackson nodded. "That's the scary part. 2 people can grow and still not grow together." On day 63, since I left our home, I returned to the old apartment. Knocked 3 times, no answer. Just as I turned to leave, Madison opened the door, unshocked. She tilted her head slightly. "Are you here to pick up your stuff or to talk?" "Both," I said. We sat in the living room. Same old sofa, the coffee table I once assembled over 3 frustrating hours, everything still in place. But the scent in the house had changed. Candles with notes of wood and mint replaced the old detergent smell I remembered. "I read both sets," I began. "They're reasonable. You did well." She nodded, didn't interrupt. "Still," I continued, "part of me can't forget that laugh. Not the words. The way you laughed after." She turned her face away. A moment passed in silence. "I understand," Madison said. "I'm not blaming. I don't expect you to forget. The thing is," I said softly, "I don't know if I can live next to someone who once laughed at the thought of me lying on an icy road, even if it was just a fantasy." She looked up, eyes red but dry. "I'm not sure I can live with myself either. For being that person." Neither of us spoke for a few minutes. The wall clock ticked gently, a reminder that time was moving on, whether we spoke or not. I stood. "I haven't made a decision. But if we do the 6-month therapy plan, it's not to go back to what we were. It's to see if there's anything real left to begin from." She didn't smile, just nodded. "I understand." On the drive home, I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't think about forgiveness. Just about the possibility that maybe we'd gone too far to go back, but not far enough to unsee each other. A fragile edge. Each step would have to be deliberate. But there was no more rushing. On day 90, I walked into the small bakery on Marshall Street, the one where I once stood in the snow for nearly 30 minutes just to get Madison's favorite cake. No romantic motive. I ordered the same one, bourbon cake with salted caramel topping, no name inscription. When the cashier asked if I needed gift wrapping, I smiled gently. "No, I'm eating it alone." I set the cake on the kitchen table of my new apartment. The walls were bare, no art. The chairs were temporary, the table still smelled like glue. But the way afternoon light filtered through the curtains felt warmer than where I'd come from. I took a photo of the cake, sitting in the middle of the table. No caption. Sent it to just one person. The only message I sent Madison after weeks of silence. I bought the same cake from that year. This time I actually finished it. She didn't reply right away. I wasn't waiting. The next day I went to Sharon's office, carrying the documents she requested. Updated financial statements, a signed no contest agreement, and a personal goals list I had scribbled on scrap paper. No one asked me to write those down, but I needed to see in black and white that I wasn't here out of habit for pain. Sharon skimmed the papers and set down her pen. "What do you want to ask today?" I answered without hesitation. "If we continue reconciliation, what has to be in place to avoid falling back into the same trap?" She studied me for a moment, making sure this wasn't some impulsive move, then opened her laptop and said, "We're not going to talk feelings, we're talking structure, trust, boundaries, expectations." I nodded. "I don't want to return to the old place. I want to know if something stronger can be built from a different one." Sharon handed me a sample agreement for structured couples therapy, with clear terms around finances, separate living arrangements during the trial period, required sessions with a licensed counselor, and progress evaluations every 6 weeks. On the way home, I pulled over by Cedar Lake, the same spot where Madison and I once biked during our first September as newlyweds. She had slipped on dry leaves, and I'd carried her to the edge of the path. We laughed until we were out of breath. I still remember what she said then. "If we can keep laughing like this once a year, marriage is worth it." At the time, I believed laughter was a foundation. Now I understand. It can come from love or from contempt. Not every kind is worth holding on to. When I got back to the apartment, I saw an email from Madison. No subject. Inside was a short paragraph. "I'm not sure I've become a better person, but I'm certain I'm no longer the one who said that. Whatever path you choose, I hope you know you are not small. No matter who ever made you feel that way. No attachments, no promises, no hints at reconciliation." I printed it, folded it in half, and slid it between the pages of my notebook, not out of sentiment, but because some words, whether or not you believe them, deserve to be remembered. That night, I sliced a piece of cake, placed it on a plain white plate, and turned on a light jazz playlist in the kitchen. I ate slowly, bite by bite. Not thinking about Madison, not about the past, just aware, clear and grounded, that no one gets to define me by someone else's mistakes. I haven't chosen reconciliation. I haven't signed divorce papers either. Maybe there's another chapter. Maybe this is the final page. But what's certain is, I'm not lost in someone else's story. Patrick's story is a stark reminder that sometimes a relationship doesn't break from a single moment, but from 100 tiny cuts accumulated over time. When trust erodes and respect disappears, letting go isn't failure, it's self-preservation. Patrick didn't choose revenge. He didn't need to prove anything. He chose to rise quietly, firmly, to begin again, where he gets to define what his life means. What do you think of Patrick's decision? Should he give Madison another chance or keep moving forward alone? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more honest, powerful stories about family and life.